Today, we're diving into a perspective on sexual harassment that you're probably not going to hear in any HR seminar. We're not talking about legal definitions or corporate policies here. Nope, this is a deep and, to be honest, a very controversial philosophical take on why harassment even happens in the first place. So, let's get into it. To really get to the heart of this source material, we have to start with this huge question. Is the problem just about a few bad apples, specific people doing specific bad things, or is it a sign of something much, much bigger, something fundamentally broken within society itself? The viewpoint we're exploring today definitely argues for the second one. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at harassment as just a symptom, not the real disease. Then we'll dig into what the source calls the animalistic paradigm that's supposedly causing it. From there, we'll check out its pretty unusual solution, get into some specific definitions, and then we'll break down its most controversial idea, the 3 verse 7 law. We'll wrap it all up with a big picture concept called life as a study. So the first big idea from the source is that issues like sexual harassment don't just happen in a vacuum. They're seen as the natural, almost inevitable result of a society that's kind of lost its way, one that's operating from a place of conflict and blame. Think of it like this, right? If you have a fever, you can take some medicine to bring your temperature down. That helps, sure, but it doesn't cure the infection that's causing the fever. The source is basically arguing that when we focus only on punishing the perpetrators, we're just treating the fever. It's a band-aid, while the actual societal sickness is left to fester underneath. So what is this societal sickness? Well, the source material actually gives it a name, an animalistic societal paradigm. And it argues that this isn't just the root of harassment, but of a whole lot of the social problems we see today. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide lays out the two competing models. Over on the left, you've got the animalistic paradigm. The source claims this is where we are now, a society just running on blame, pure self-interest, and constant division. But on the right, you see the goal, the humane paradigm. That's all about mutual support, people working for a purpose bigger than themselves, leading to actual harmony and progress. Okay, so if the problem really is that deep, how in the world do you even start to fix it? Well, the source proposes a very indirect approach. Instead of a head-on attack, it suggests this strategy it calls solving from the West. Now, this is just an analogy. Think of the East as the obvious problem you see, like harassment. The West is the hidden root cause, so individual character. The argument goes that you can't fix the East directly. You have to secretly work on the West. So what does that really mean? It means to fix society from the top, you have to start by improving individuals at the bottom, letting that positive change just grow naturally. And this slide kind of shows what working from the bottom is all about. It's this idea that each person should try to become necessary. And in this view, being necessary isn't about being popular or liked. It's about creating real, tangible value, what the source calls economy, through what you do. It's about shifting from just being a consumer in society to being an active contributor who makes good things happen. So how does all this abstract philosophy actually play out in the real world? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of how the source defines the lines of harassment, and the distinctions it makes are very, very specific. The source is crystal clear on this. It argues that just looking at someone, no matter what they're wearing, is not harassment. Why? Because people naturally look at things that stand out. The line gets crossed with action. So touching without clear adult permission, that's harassment. Touching a minor, harassment, period. Because a minor can't truly consent. And finally, using language that makes someone genuinely uncomfortable in a sexual way is also harassment. And here is a super critical piece of context. The source argues this isn't just about random acts. It is fundamentally about power. Harassment is almost always an abuse of power. You'll usually find the perpetrator is in a position of authority, a boss, a senior employee, someone with social status, while the victim is in a weaker or more vulnerable position. Okay, now we get to the most provocative, the most challenging part of this entire framework. The source calls it the 3 versus 7 law, and it's a theory all about how fault gets divided up when an incident of harassment happens. 70%. According to this theory, that's the percentage of fault that lies with one party in a harassment incident. And I can almost guarantee it is not the party you're thinking of. So let's just cut right to it. Who gets assigned this massive 70% share of the blame? Well, the answer is exactly what makes this whole theory so incredibly controversial. And there it is, a direct quote from the source. It claims that the person who was harassed holds 70% of the responsibility because of their mistaken actions, while the harasser only holds 30%. Now, this is, without a doubt, a shocking claim that goes against almost all modern understanding. It's really crucial to point out, though, that the source never specifies what those mistaken actions actually are, which leaves its most controversial point wide open to interpretation. But there is a twist. Take a look at this table. The source claims this 70-30 split completely flips if the whole thing goes to court. At that point, the perpetrator's fault skyrockets to 70%. So why the flip? The logic is that by letting it escalate to the legal system, they failed to handle the aftermath correctly. They didn't apologize or make things right. Their failure to clean up the mess becomes the bigger mistake. So to wrap all of this up, the source leaves us with one final philosophical idea. It's a way of looking at those negative things that keep happening in our lives, not as just random bad luck, but as something else entirely. And it calls this concept life as a study. If someone is repeatedly a victim of harassment, or if a harasser keeps getting caught over and over again, the source says this is not a coincidence. It's not just bad luck. There is a pattern there, and that pattern has a purpose. And that purpose is what the source calls a study or a lesson. The idea is that the universe keeps serving you up the same tough situation because there's something you need to learn from it. It's basically a big flashing sign pointing you towards some deep self-reflection and a chance to grow. The source gives these analogies to make the point a little clearer. You know, it's like that person who seems to be a magnet for fender benders, or the one who somehow falls for the same kind of scam multiple times. The pattern isn't out there in the world. The pattern is in the person, and it's going to keep repeating until the lesson is learned. So here's the really important part. This cycle of negative experiences, whether you're the victim or the perpetrator, it's not a life sentence. According to this view, the cycle breaks the exact moment the person completes their study. That just means they finally get the lesson, they take responsibility for their part in it, and they fundamentally change how they act or how they see the world. And that brings us to our final thought for today. If we were to take this idea seriously, even for just a moment, that the challenges that keep showing up in our own lives aren't random, but are actually a personalized lesson plan, it leaves us all with a pretty powerful question. What is the lesson you are meant to be learning right now?